Welcome back, everyone. I'm Matt from Media Man. You know how they often say that third time's the charm? Well, they're not talking about Jaws 3 when they say that. Released in 1983 and directed by Joe Alves, Jaws 3 made its mark on the world of filmmaking. And by making its mark, I mean that it was often regarded as one of the worst films ever made only worse by its awful 3D effects. For those unaware, the third movie in the series was originally pitched as Jaws 3 People Zero. The idea was that it would be something along the lines of a parody movie, poking fun of itself. However, the producers didn't like the idea as they felt it was disrespectful to spoof what was arguably one of their most influential movie series. So instead we got Jaws 3, a film that takes place at one of the Florida SeaWorld resorts and has a killer shark running loose. Or should I say swimming loose? As previously stated, the gimmick this time around was the use of 3D effects. During the 80s, a lot of movie sequels had 3D effects thrown in, such as Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D and Amityville 3D. Which is kind of a shame because the idea behind Jaws 3 is actually a really cool concept. A shark let loose in SeaWorld? That sounds awesome. Unfortunately, this is a film that's just bogged down by its boring characters, a subpar plot, and of course its awful 3D effects. But I don't want to get ahead of myself here, so without further ado, let's take a look at Jaws 3 and see if the price of an admission ticket for SeaWorld is worth it this time around. The film begins with a shark swimming into a gate that separates the ocean from the park's lagoon, causing it to break. Seems like a pretty big shark, huh? Maybe he's just trying to be smart and bypass all the lines. We're then introduced to our two main characters, Mike Brody, played by Dennis Quaid, and his girlfriend, Catherine Morgan, played by Bess Armstrong. We're then introduced to a British oceanographer, Philip Fitzroy, played by Simon McCorkindale. And as if we didn't already have enough characters, we also have Mike's younger brother, Sean, played by John Putch. Thing is, he's really barely in the movie to begin with. I mean, he's only really here to establish the fact that, like, oh yeah, we were kids at one point and we almost got eaten by sharks. Remember that? Yeah, I remember. We then jump cut to a park engineer jumping into the lagoon to fix the gate. Without an oxygen mask. Shouldn't he at least have a flashlight? Then again, why would he wait until nighttime to do this in the first place? Wouldn't it be safer during the day? Not to mention, I thought Mike was the one who said that there was no overtime. If it wasn't obvious, the shark shows up and kills the engineer. Whoa, that looks so awful! We then see two guys out on a raft. They're not here for maintenance or anything of the sort, but rather to steal coral from SeaWorld. Absolutely disgusting. I can't believe what I'm witnessing. Well, then again, I can't really see things to begin with, but you know what I mean. This reminds me a lot of the scene from the first Jaws with the two guys on the dock. It doesn't really add a lot to the plot, but instead to the body count. However, I do like how this scene actually plays out. We see one of them down on the ocean floor collecting the coral as the light suddenly goes out. The other guy gets pulled in, only to resurface and be killed for good. It's rather effective for such a small scene. Okay, not a bad scene, Jaws 3. You did a good job. High five. Moving on. The following morning, Mike and Catherine use a submarine to seek out the missing engineer. It's also here where we get some groundbreaking special effects. Whoa! Not long after, the two investigate a ship at the bottom of the lagoon. Then suddenly...
Here's Brucey!
I think I'd rather watch that movie, if I'm being honest.
What the hell is that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is that?
That would be known as plot progression, Mike. It's a hell of a thing. And thank God, because up until this point I've been pretty damn bored. The two of them talk with their boss Calvin about what to do with the shark. Mike wants to kill it, obviously, but Catherine sees the potential in capturing it for publicity's sake. They manage to tranquilize it and get it ready for the day of the grand opening, but it ends up dying in captivity. It's a sad thing, isn't it? The publicity must have been too much for the little shark. The engineer's body resurfaces, and after doing an autopsy, they conclude that there is no way that the baby shark could have eaten him.
Its mother did.
The shark ends up causing some damage to the underwater tunnels, trapping some of its visitors inside, so Royce develops a plan. He'll distract the shark, while Mike welds the damages to save the people trapped inside the tunnels. They lure the shark into a filtration tank, closing the gate behind him in an attempt to suffocate the shark. But of course, the cord holding Royce snaps, and he uses his stick to poke the shark because his wizardry skills are lacking. We then witness one of the most uncomfortable deaths in the entire series. Although it begs the question, like, how did he actually die here? Because to my knowledge, sharks don't actually have teeth in their throats, do they? Not long after, the shark somehow manages to free itself from the tunnel and swims backwards. Mike and Catherine manage to get the tunnel wielded just in time. They rush back inside the control room where we get our final confrontation. This has got to be one of the worst effects in the entire franchise. I mean, really? It's just an image of a shark slowly moving towards the glass. No tail movement, nothing. Mike and Catherine spot a grenade in Royce's hand, so they manage to pull it and boom goes the shark. The movie ends with the dolphins jumping out of the water. And freeze frame! Oh, thank God, I can take these off now. I was starting to get a headache. So, where exactly do we begin with summing up this movie? Jaws 3 is a film that falls flat in almost every regard. Having a shark let loose in SeaWorld should have been great. However, its 3D gimmick is what ruined it. Beyond giving me a headache, the effects just didn't work. They look cheap, and there are many moments throughout the entire movie that just show objects floating towards the screen for seconds at a time. So unless you're watching the movie in 3D, it just feels out of place. It's clear the 3D elements took priority here, which is why I think the rest of the film suffered as a result. Next are the characters. Now, I think some of the moments with them do work. For example, there's a scene with Mike and Catherine walking on the beach. He tells her about the time his family was attacked by a shark on Amity.
He hates the water. Remember that shark attack I told you about when we were kids in Amity?
Or there's the moment where they're trying to catch the baby shark and he gets really nervous about getting in the water. Sure, it's consistent with his character given his previous experience with the sharks, but beyond that, it doesn't really go anywhere. If I'm being honest, I don't even understand why he works at a place that deals with water and sea creatures to begin with. You'd think after the first two incidents, he'd stay away from the ocean or just get a pool. Beyond that, having the Brodies as the main characters felt superfluous. They could have been literally any other character and the story would not have changed. If I'm being honest, my favorite character would have to be Catherine. She had a lot of charisma and carried the movie for me. As bad as this film is, she did well enough given the material, so good on her. With that said, I can't even personally bring myself to say that this was entertainingly bad. For a majority of the runtime, I was just slumped into my chair, constantly checking the clock, waiting for it to be over. When it's all said and done, Jaws 3 had a lot of potential to be a really entertaining addition to the series. The effects are terrible, the writing is bad, there's barely any tension, and arguably the worst sin this movie commits is that it's just boring. While it has its moments, the execution as a whole was just poorly done. I gotta be honest, guys, this movie series is taking a toll on me. I was hoping by now it'd be done, but we're still not even close to being done yet, because we still have to finish Jaws 4 after this. And I'm probably gonna have to grab a beer for that one. With all that being said, I want to thank you guys all for watching, and as always, I will see you guys next time. Take care.